to our 37th episode of the Launch Your Farm Show, where I interview Sheena Saydam with Keller Williams in Metro DC. In this episode, Sheena and I talk about why you need to be strategic with your unique value proposition so that you have time and resources to give back to the community and still run an incredible business. Sheena shares how to leverage your network to help some amazing causes in your community. And we talk about what you can do to ensure people know you're in the business without coming off as pushy or salesy. And we talk about a super easy way to build networking groups that help educate the community, raise money, and generate business for you. And Sheena shares how to grow your database in your farm by focusing on people you already know. Plus, we talk about a ton of other ideas that you can use to grow your geographic farm. So be sure to check out this episode, like and subscribe, and enjoy the episode with Sheena. Welcome back to another episode of the Launch Your Farm Show. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and today we've got a great guest for you. It's Sheena Saydam from Metro DC. So Sheena, take a second, tell us a bit about yourself and why you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so pumped to be here. It is finally a beautiful day. And I was excited to talk to you. So I and my husband and I manage a small but mighty team that services the DC metro area. We sold about 230 homes last year entirely by referral. Our price point here, I guess that works out to like 115 million. And we've done it entirely by referral. We are doing quite a bit of farming, but we do it in sort of a very different way, which I guess we're going to get to today.
Yeah, which I'm excited to dive into the strategies you've used. So I always start though, beginning kind of how did you get into the business? What did it look like for you and how did you evolve?
Yeah. So I grew up in the military. Wow. So a very service-minded family. My father, of course, was in the Army, and then my mom just we followed along. It wasn't back then. You couldn't really hold a job. You were moving every 6 months to a year and a half. So my mom took care of my sister and me, and everywhere she went, it would be like she would set up her own little nonprofit. She would find out that the soldiers, were spending their money, their paychecks before the end of the month. And so she's like, okay, she sets up a desk and she's helping them to budget. And so I think that's a lot of what you're going to hear later, sort of our service-mindedness, where that came from. I worked in nonprofit for many years, for a good number of years after I got out of college, finished my master's in national security policy and thought I'm going to go into interrogation, but I couldn't get a security clearance, which is required to work in such a field. You could only get the security clearance if you were working in a job that required it. So it was this catch-22. So I thought, I just lost my job. They were laying off a lot of people back then. It was the bottom of the market, like 2009. And so I said, what am I going to do next? So my husband was like, what about real estate? So I said, okay. And I just jumped in. It was just so random. And so that's how I got here. It's been about 10 years. We've grown a pretty substantial team. And what I'm most proud of is we've given a whole lot of money away to charity and raised a lot of money for local nonprofits. So that's been super exciting. And one of them right here is Charity Water. So
awesome. Yeah. The one thing I've noticed as a theme from interviewing a lot of agents, that most agents don't plan to be in real estate unless they have a family member who was a real estate agent. Most people fall into it. They try it out, whatever, and it kind of shapes what they do and how they do. And I find a lot of people's past really helps really dictate what they're going to do in their business. And for you, obviously the giving back and the charity is a big part of that. At what point did you start putting that kind of element into your business then?
That's a great question. From the very beginning, I would say I was giving back to the organizations and causes that I cared about, but I wasn't doing it in a very strategic way, meaning that I think what we figured out is how to leverage our massive network for good. So I think that was the biggest piece of it, and also how to turn some of that into repeat business as well, because I think people you could throw a rock and you're going to hit 5 real estate agents right now. There are a ton. That New York Times article just came out that said there are more agents out there than there are homes. And that was, that's interesting and not surprising. I have people message me every single day asking me how to get into real estate. So I think you have to set yourself up for success. And that means having a unique value proposition. And so being a mission-driven company is one of those pieces for us.
Yeah, one of the things I teach about farming is that farming isn't about postcards and door knocking, and that a lot of people think that's the fundamentals of farming. In reality, that's a strategy or two strategies. But I teach the core, I call it the CPR, which is community, positioning, and relationships. And when you can do that in a focused area, when you can really give back to the community, when you can position yourself as the expert and as the ambassador, and when you build those relationships, that's really what the farming is all about. And that's really what you've done, is you've been able to focus on the community, you've been able to give back, and you position yourself as that community ambassador, and those relationships have really flourished. So what did it look like when you got started with those events? And you said you kind of adapted and changed. What changed for you to make you realize you need to be more strategic with it?
That's great. I think one of the big things was just with growth, right? Like growth, I think, like you said, a lot of people don't expect to be in real estate. And we also didn't expect, it's not that we didn't expect to be successful, but we didn't know what exactly success should look like.
Yep.
And so what happened was, I think we were becoming quite successful. We had to hire more agents, had to hire more staff. And so that gave me more opportunity to sit down and kind of think about what strategic growth would look like. And part of that was looking at our figures and numbers and saying, gosh, we do all of our business by referral. How can we just get more out of what's working? Because a lot of people have a tendency to go, looking for the silver bullets, or let's go pay some money here, let's go spend money here and try all these different levers. But if and people still give me a hard time about it. They say, well, if you're going to build your business entirely by referral, that's only one lever. And I disagree, because there's all kinds of places where you can get business from. We're just talking about what you said, building relationships. And there's a great book on that called The Relationship Edge. Okay. I love that book. And it talks about really getting people from not knowing you to knowing you. And you're just always pushing people up this funnel to people who like you, and at the very top respect you, because people who respect you are the people who are going to use you for real estate. So one of the really pivotal points was when I started to get that space to be able to think about things and think, how are we going to dig in deep to our business and sort of get more of that business back? I started to think, how can we dig in? And it was a bit of a challenge for us because we cover 3 states, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. It's an hour and 10 minutes in every direction. Yeah. So trying to create a community with people who have such disparate, differences in culture and location and all those things, it's kind of a little bit more challenging, I would say, than if you just focus on one town or one city or one county. So we started doing some Facebook groups. So we did one for DC, one for Maryland, one for Virginia, and it was like SPG's, Maryland's most amazing clients or something like that. And one for DC and one for Virginia didn't go anywhere because people weren't connected just by the state there. Like that was, but we learned quickly and we pivoted. And so what we ended up doing was creating women's empowerment groups for each jurisdiction. And so then we could really dig in to each of those groups and say, okay, what do we want to do here? And what we ended up doing, the short of it is we have events, we fund them, and our lender partners and other vendors help fund them. Yep. We bring in an expert to come and speak. We charge $25 per person. There's drinks and food, and the money all goes to a local nonprofit. So we're touching a lot of people there and creating a lot of influence.
I think it's important because you realized you had to shift, you had to adapt, and you tried something, didn't work, kind of refigured it out until you kind of found that sweet spot. And then I'm sure once you found that, then it became an evolution within that, going, okay, how do I make it better? How do I add to it? And how do I grow it? I want to go back though, because a lot of agents give flack and get flack when they shift out of just focusing on real estate. So a lot of agents say, oh, it should be transactional. And there's a lot of old school agents who say it's why you shouldn't be doing this other stuff. And I really believe that the future of real estate is not just selling the homes. That's a byproduct of this type of things you're doing, where you're getting involved. How much of your business is spent doing those things, and how much of your business is actually spent doing the actual transactions themselves?
So for me personally, I haven't sold a home in about 5 years, although I did get 2 garage spots under contract today. Nice. Just random things come up. But otherwise, I spend 8 hours a day on social media, just interacting with people, posting content and content that my agents can use. So we really do work together and take that. But before that, I would say, or when any of our agents, I would say the majority of their time on prospecting is spent trying to build those relationships outside of real estate. And it really is there's purpose to it. And I think some people do try to go the transactional route and they can be successful that way. But for us, at least, it seems like you're not churning and burning when you're just continuing to nurture those past clients and build business from there. You're building relationships, and it starts the moment you meet that person, whether they're a stranger or not, all the way through, hopefully a lifetime is what we're going for.
Yeah, I think it takes a team to do it at the level that you're doing. Obviously, for one agent, they're getting started thinking, well, I want to start doing this. It may be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be a real estate team. It can be strategic partnerships, like you talked about, your mortgage broker helping fund, and you can have people within the community. And those relationships are the time you need to be spending building those relationships so that you can then grow that. So when you got started, what were those kind of key starting relationships that you needed?
Yeah. So I think the key and what I tell people is I read this book from the beginning that I thought was just fundamental to how I got going. And it was called Up and Running in 30 Days by Carla Cross.
Okay.
And I went around the country the last few years. I've talked to 25 or more brokerages, and I've told them, get this book. It's all about building a business by referral, by relationship. It's none of the cold stuff. And I finally cracked this book open, and I'm like, I should check this out after 10 years. And like, there's all kinds of stuff in there. It's not just relationships, but I think that's just where my focus was. I always told people, like, I didn't even know there was a thing such as cold calling until I joined this brokerage, Keller Williams, where they've made it a system out of it. But what I took from there and what I wrote up as my plan as a solo agent is I needed to talk to 5 people every single week. And that could be like it doesn't have to be strangers necessarily, but like old college friends, people I used to work with. I have to sit there and have coffee with them. And then I had to have at least 2 to 2+ people events every single week.
Wow.
So that just continued to grow. So those are some of the things that were in there, and then just stay in touch with people, talk to every single person you know about real estate. So I think a solo agent can do it. That's how I got started. You just have to be willing to do that work, and it's going to be more than 40 hours. And sometimes they may think, well, I don't have enough time for transactions then. Don't worry about it. That just means you're just going to have to hire somebody else to help you, a showing agent, transaction coordinator, but don't let that stop you, because the most important thing you can do is get and own that lead.
Yeah. That's actually the very first book I read in real estate. I wasn't even licensed. And I had a mentor who owned a brokerage, and he gave me that book, and I can't even remember the other book, but that book stood out to me. And that was the first book I ever read. So yeah, it's a great book.
You're the only other person I know who's read that book. How funny is that?
Yeah. I had it. I can't find it anymore, but that was 13 years ago. And I distinctly remember that book. It was very good. So I want to dive into that growth phase, because for a lot of agents, that's where they struggle. They start getting out there, they get involved in the community, and there is that balance of trying to sell homes. And like you said, it's good to leverage yourself out. Then how quickly did you grow from that? And what did that look like for you? Because for a lot of agents, they struggle, I find, in that getting the momentum going and then keeping it growing.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of agents too, it's like they are used to doing it all. So they think they just need to keep doing it all. So I had to have somebody bring me awareness. I remember the phone call I had with my current broker, and it was like a lot of wisdom he threw on me. And it was really like, you are at an inflection point. It's like this Gary Keller 6 principles. And I don't know if everyone listening is not necessarily Keller Williams, but we have this idea that you hit these inflection points in your career, and then things need to change. You need to learn new things. You need to meet new people. And so that was pretty powerful. And I would say, to your question of, how do you get through that? Knowing exactly who you want to be around every single day. I think that is the number one thing. And then being able to put that out there to the world. A lot of people say, I even see people who are doing hundreds of deals already, and they put out there, they're like, I want to hire an amazing, inside salesperson. And they list all these things that they want this person to do. And I'm just looking at them going, I don't know a single person who's looking at that and going, oh my God, that is my dream job. And what I say is put out there, start out with all the personality stuff. Like for my executive assistant, for instance, who has changed the game, like she's been with me for 2 years. She's now also productivity coach, also sort of like sales director for my team. So that was amazing growth and trajectory. And part of that was just her listening to me all the time, but it was putting out there exactly what I was looking for. And it started out with something to the effect of, I'm looking for an extremely adaptable person. the person who people go to get things done, who's flexible in situations, who will get work done without somebody over their shoulder. So I was looking for all these key personality traits. And then I talked about a little bit about what they would be doing. But I think you got to find the people who really mesh well with whatever culture it is you're trying to create. And you got to be really honest with yourself. And most agents are going to find themselves in a position where they're like, I have to hire 2 weeks ago. Yes. But still take your time to hire. But if you put that sort of messaging out there, you're going to get better candidates to start. So the process won't take too long.
And I think the key is, like you said, start the process and start doing it, even if you're not 100% ready yet, because the process does take some time to get doing it. I find that a lot of agents wear like a badge of honor that they do everything themselves. And that's, in my opinion, one of the stupidest things you can do. Is you're not the best at everything. You're not the best fit. Your time isn't best suited to be doing everything, and finding the right people will definitely help. And I've always said, it doesn't have to be full time. When people think, oh, I got to have an admin, they think, oh, I got to have a salary for 40 hours a week. It's like, hire someone part-time, hire someone for 10 hours a week. You may find someone who's a good fit that just takes that off your plate to help you get to the next level, which makes sense.
And by the way, speaking to that incremental approach, not only are you maybe just hiring a part-time person, you're not hiring you're not giving them $20,000 or $30,000 right now. You're going to give them $1,500, $2,000, and we'll see what happens in the next pay period. We'll see what happens. They're on a 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? So, and they have to earn that income, right? So you're tracking that and being very careful about it. And I would say the strongest advice I would give there is just think about the other people in your life who are maybe a little bit ahead of you, and they are doing it. And don't think that we are lowering our standards, because I am absolutely not. I'm absolutely not lowering my standards. These people are doing it better. And I wouldn't be able to focus on the things I need to focus on.
Yeah, which is awesome. So speaking of the things you want to focus on, you're getting involved in the community, you're diving into those events, and you're giving back. Can we dive into, like, what are you doing? What does it look like? And walk us through some of those events and things that you're doing.
Yeah. So there's a number of things. There's first off, the events, that with COVID has been a little bit more difficult. We have been doing stuff via Zoom, but I think we're going to get back to in-person pretty soon. But it's things like, and you talked about, most people don't get into real estate just to start, right? They've done something else. You've probably been good at something else before. So take those skills, whatever they are, and bring those to your network. So for instance, you may be really good at, for me, it's negotiating. So that's a class that I teach to my women's empowerment group. Again, people pay $25. They come, we have food and drinks, and they come and learn about these things. And the money all goes to charity. The person from the charity gets to come and speak, but you can bring in financial advisors to come speak, anything that, people, self-care, yoga, any sorts of things like that, and just offer it to the community. We're using Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor to get the word out about that. So that's really powerful. And then I also serve on many local nonprofits. So that's another way to learn more about leadership, to learn more about these organizations, to connect with more people, because everyone is an opportunity, right? We tell our agents, and what I teach is, I don't go out looking for buyers and sellers. I go out looking for human beings to give value to. So all those people sitting with me every month at those board meetings are potential clients, right? Even if they're not looking to buy or sell, they may know somebody. So you have the opportunity to show your leadership, to show your kind heart, and to invest in those organizations. And when you really connect with those local nonprofits, they come back in kind. Like, even I worked at a lot of nonprofits, and I know that the pay is not great. Sometimes the morale is not great. So we make sure when we go into a nonprofit, we are supporting those staff members as well. And many of them have bought houses from us. And that's not like our end goal, but it's just a natural byproduct when it's like, oh, these people actually do care about me. And again, it's not our goal for them to purchase from us, but that sort of thing happens. And the final piece is we try to find opportunities for in-kind donations, which, if folks haven't heard of that before, it's like, instead of giving money to organizations, which is the most important thing, but the sort of second is in kind. If you can find organizations that are collecting, toiletry kits, pajamas, any of these sorts of things, we reach out. We're sort of like a mouthpiece for these organizations. We put it on Nextdoor, we put it on Facebook, and it's kind of like we end up creating a reverse pop-by for our communities. And so people come to us to bring the things, and all the time people reach out and they're like, we see other people's signs a little more often here, but you guys are doing really great things for the community. Will you come list our house? Happens all the time.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of agents think that it takes a lot of money to do these kind of things, and you could do that for literally no money because you can partner with people who can then bring that. You can empower the community to do that. I always say clothing drives, food drives, toy drives, electronic waste drives, whatever, are so easy to do and don't have to cost you money other than the promotion. And that's your way to reach out to the community, build those relationships, and it's just some of the marketing and promotion, and it's an easy way to repeatedly do that over and over again and provide value. And I always say that the great thing when you do community events and charity work is you get tied to the good feeling that those people are feeling. So when they're donating and when they're giving and they're doing that, they connect you as like the intermediary, and they have warm fuzzy feelings around you because you help them feel that way. And when you create these environments and create these opportunities, they relate that to you, not just the agent who says, I sell 100 homes, call me, I'm the best. It's like it creates that warm bond that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's important for people to hear that it's not necessarily succeeding in getting like new clients. It's also like when people buy a home, most of them, I mean, you do get a few, I call them weirdos and I call them that to their faces. I'm like, oh, you guys still want to get listings in your own neighborhood? You're weird. Not even me as a real estate agent do I want to get that. But most of the time, like you don't, like you have nothing else to give that person, right?
Yeah.
Or you may think that because you've got real estate, right? So you need something else to be able to stay in touch with that person. By doing the work that has no end, by doing work where you're giving to causes and working on missions, the work is endless, the content is endless. Yeah. And so the connections are as well.
Yeah, that's 100%. And that's where a lot of agents struggle. Like, okay, I'm in real estate. What do I send? And then they either send out mediocre crap that just is boring real estate content, or they don't send anything. It's like, this is an opportunity for you to add value, build trust, give back, and tie it all together. And you don't have a lot of it. You don't have to come up with the content yourself. If you're, like you said, you're bringing in people for the events, you're having them share. It's not you having to teach the same things each time. So it's providing value from other people. So when you do these things, how do you tie in real estate? Because that's where I find a lot of agents struggle going, okay, I want to get involved. I want to get back. How do I become the go-to without being salesy, without being out there saying,
don't be salesy. That's it. Because what we're trying to do is build relationships. So, but bringing them, one thing that has really helped is really the social media piece, right? So they come into our world, we're friending everybody, right? There's really no separation between business and personal. So we're friending everybody. And so they're going to see all kinds of things. They're going to see stuff about my family. They're going to see the stuff, the commitment to charity, and they're going to see our real estate stuff. They're going to see a lot of that. So, that's sort of part of it right there. When we go to introduce ourselves at those events, we're a real estate team, but we're a real estate on a mission to do a real estate team on a mission to do good. So it's very like sort of secondary how we bring it in there. There's nothing like cold about it, but I think that's what attracts people to it. Is like, you guys didn't push this down our throats, and most people are not going to use you, right? Like there's so many, they've got friends, they have other relationships. Maybe there's something about the vibe that doesn't work for them. Maybe it just doesn't click that like, oh, they did something for me. So it'd be nice if I like supported their business. And that's okay. You're not a great fit for everybody. But there will be people, and you can build a big business through this, and you don't have to shove it down people's throats. It's really about just reminding them, hey, we're here, and doing it consistently. That's the biggest thing is like, and if people want some tactical stuff, it's like SPG, Saydam Properties Group, presents this. We do that frequently.
And if you're new to this, it's going to take that time to get that snowball rolling. So you may not get a deal or two up front, but then once you get that next deal, then they start seeing it, and then it helps, especially when you're doing geographic farming. Like myself, when I started my farm, I had no sales in the area, and then the first listing led to the next listing, which led to the next. So it takes time. It takes time to build the relationships and build that trust and get people to respect you, like you said, and then it will start rolling. So I want to ask you about failures, because this is where it's easy to say, paint a nice broad brush of everything's great, whatever. What's something that you went out, thought was going to be amazing, and sucked? Because I've had a lot of agents go, I tried this and it didn't work, and they get frustrated. So what have you done that you thought was going to be a winner and didn't?
Yeah, this road to doing this has come with a lot of suck, I guess I would say, but mostly awesome, right? And Gary Keller, I'm sorry, I know this is not all Keller Williams agents, but he heads our company, and he says, like, I'm the biggest failure in the room. I love that you use the word suck, because failure, like I was talking to my husband a few years ago, and I'm like, I don't feel like I've ever failed at anything. So either I'm just not aware. Or I lack awareness, which I think is not true, I think. And then the second piece is maybe I haven't tried hard enough. Maybe I haven't done enough hard things. And I think what we came to realize is this term failure just seems like so like life altering ending. And so I think maybe my optimism
Yeah.
pushes me to think like they haven't really failed. And so I think the first thing is to get a mindset around like, it may suck, it may stink, but you're not a failure. But I guess some things that we kind of maybe screwed up on. We've had, let's see. I have
put you on the spot. So
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, I'm running through all these things in my head actually, but what would be most useful in hiring? I think we didn't do a great job of hiring for quite a while. I think we've gotten really good at it, and it goes back to that piece of like, who do you really want in your world, and looking for those people. And if like you start to get like these feelings, like things are coming out of people's mouths, like, ooh, that rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think that's not like my values do not align with that. You got to start working on a program for them to be removed from your team. Help them self-select off, because it is not going to get better. Don't keep people on your team who the integrity piece, that's huge. If you start to see some of that slip up, even if it's with somebody else, not someone on your team, if it's some clients, that's going to show up later. So I think being really clear about who is going to get close to you and learn from you, because you're going to have to invest a lot of time in training. So I think that's the biggest piece.
And the reason I ask that question is because I have an ulterior motive in that I find a lot of agents sit here and watch mega agents who are maybe new or have never grown, and they think it's all rosy and everything's great, or they think, oh, I could never do that. I'm never there. And they don't realize that there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of not failure, but a lot of learning throughout the process. And it doesn't just happen overnight. And some people think, well, I could never be that. And I'm sure a lot of agents, when they get started, don't go, well, I could be that. They do it, they work towards it, and it starts happening. So I want to ask that because I've had people reach out and say, well, I'm not them, or I couldn't do that. So it's important to hear both sides too.
I've seen really interesting, just anecdotally, like, and I know I'm like, this is very general, but I feel like more men at the top of this, spectrum, who are successful, very successful. It seems to me that they did have this big vision. I'm going to do this. And that worked for them. I think a lot of women, and I would count myself among them, for better or worse, just kind of put my head down and worked really hard, and it just kind of naturally grew.
Yep.
And now that I just said that, you just gave me like a lot of awareness actually, because I've heard this guy talk about, because I've always seen myself as like a big goal person. And I do think I do focus in that way. I do have big vision. And at the same time, it may not work for everybody to think big like that. That's okay. There's a guy who wrote this book about small habits. Have you heard that? Habit hacking?
No.
Where basically, instead of like, say you want to become a person who does push-ups, instead of going, okay, I'm going to get myself up to 100 push-ups. I'm going to follow this plan, 10 push-ups, 20, 30, 40, or 1,000 push-ups, in a week. Instead, make them really small, make the goal really small. So, and tie it to something you unconsciously do all the time. So he connected it to, every time I pee, I'm going to do a push-up. So he did. And then if he feels like doing a little bit more, he will. And eventually you just do, but if you don't, it's okay. And the standard is just one push-up. So every day you have a win, instead of looking at this and going, oh my God, I'm not here yet. So that may be another way for people to come at their goals and still be extremely successful.
Yeah. And there's going to be growth, and there's going to be ups and downs, and it's not giving up when you have the downs, and just keep moving on that day-to-day goal, which is huge.
And every time something goes wrong, it doesn't matter if like your agent majorly screwed up, you better look at yourself and go, what could I have done differently?
Yep.
And ask them, what could I do? It's always a culture of 100% accountability. What could I have done? And so when your entire team explodes, like ours did 2 years ago, that's where you got to go. It can't be these people are such jerks. You can't go there, because you can't change other people. You can only change yourself.
Exactly. That's great. So I want to ask you about the impact you've made in the community. So what's something that you are extremely proud of, and that you've just said like, wow, I can't believe we accomplished this?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I went to a women's empowerment event, and the couple there was telling me how they, who ran the event, were saying that they've been feeding the homeless for the last 6 years.
Mm,
But the one thing they found was in the city of Baltimore, there was no clean place to get a shower, clean, safe
mhm.
place. So they wanted to build a shower truck for the homeless. So for 3.5 years, we invested and became one of the largest investors in the shower truck for the homeless. So we
Wow,
built a shower truck for the homeless. It's been in service for 2 years. So that's pretty awesome.
that's awesome.
That's a very like tangible thing, and a
Mhm.
lot of our past clients have come to volunteer there. We volunteer there regularly, and my kids volunteer there. So that's been really tremendous. We've drilled quite a few wells in sub-Saharan Africa, so to be able to see the videos and the impact, to see people going and drinking and changing their lives, like
Yeah.
these children walk 3 hours, girls walk 3 hours each way. They can't go to school. That's pretty much the end of any kind of progress for them. So once we drill the well, it's a whole different ballgame. So those are a few of the things. We're working on a bunch of other projects now. One thing I'm really proud of is half of my team just signed up for what's called the Literacy Project here in DC, where we are helping kids in underprivileged areas get tutoring. So we are actually going to tutor them in reading.
Oh,
So
that's
and
awesome.
through Zoom. I'm super excited about
That's
that.
cool. That's awesome. And I ask that because again, real estate gives us opportunities to really make an impact just past the transaction. And a lot of agents focus on the how much money I make, the car I drive, and they look at it from a selfish perspective. And we have an amazing opportunity to give back to the communities we serve and beyond. Like you said, you're helping sub-Saharan African people because of the houses that you're selling here and the impact you're having in the community, which is huge. And I think if agents can get behind that and see that there's more to just selling the house itself, I think it will help motivate them and it can inspire them to do more, either locally in their
Mhm.
community or abroad. And that can make a huge difference for a lot of agents.
And it will help you to attract the right people to your team,
Yeah.
and it will help you to attract the people who you want to work with. So there are some agents who are like, what car should I drive? And they drive Porsches and they drive all these nice cars, which is fine. And people, sometimes they buy a fancy purse right as soon as every closing.
Yeah.
We did over 2 million in GCI last year. My husband and I, we drive Ford Explorers. We live in a nice house, but it's not like multi-million-dollar house. And we help multimillionaires purchase property all the time. We own a
Mhm.
lot of investment properties. Um, we're about to purchase another business outside of real estate, and we're working on another big project. And we're not fancy people, but we attract the kind of people to our world based on what we're putting out there, and that's the charity piece. I think just kind of living simply, just showing people like, we're not using all your money to buy this fancy Porsche, which
Yeah.
it's fine. And there are people who are going to be attracted to that.
Yep.
But it's people you want to be around.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
us, that wasn't it.
Yeah, and it's attracting the people on your team, which then further attract more people on the team that are like that. And then it also attracts people in the community to then want to work with you. And then you have something in common. You have something that you can bond over and create that relationship with, which is awesome. So
Yeah.
if you were to give someone one piece of advice, if they're getting started or getting into, making an impact in the community, what would be one piece of advice you'd give?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice would be just keep hustling, work really, 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 really hard, and read a lot of books along the way. And get away from the negativity. Find
Yeah,
people who you can really be positive with and grow with. So
that's awesome.
that's my advice.
It's great advice. And we always wrap up with your best book segment. So that's perfect because you said to read a lot. So what's one book that you would absolutely recommend that's either made an impact in your life or we think would make an impact in our viewers' life?
Yeah, before I talked to you last week or 2 weeks ago, I would say Ride of a Lifetime.
Okay.
It's written by the guy who just finished up 30 years running Disney, Bob Iger, and it
Yes.
is a phenomenal business book. It's only like 250 pages or something, which I was a little bit skeptical when I saw that. Before I read that, I thought Barack Obama's book was the best leadership book. Don't worry about the politics. That was amazing. And then I know you said one, but now that it's been a week or two, I'm reading a book right now called Just Listen. Have you read that one?
No, no.
It is extraordinary. It's extraordinary when it comes to leadership, when it comes to just being a better, kinder person, and also negotiating. So Just Listen, it was written by a psychiatrist of how to get through to anyone. So I highly
Awesome.
recommend that one.
Well, we'll put all three in there. So that was great. Thank you for that. And how can our viewers check out what you're up to, find out where you're at, and how can they connect?
Yeah. www.saydamproperties.com, SAYDAM properties.com. We work Maryland, DC, and Virginia. If you ever want to get together on an amazing, project to give back to the world, we're working on some really cool things. And if you have referrals, we're always here for that as well. So
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes so people can check it out. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your excitement and your enthusiasm, because you can definitely feel it. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience. I know my viewers are really going to appreciate this episode.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for checking out today's episode. If you'd like more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and our other social media channels. Looking forward to bringing you more great content like this, and happy farming.